Welcome back, everyone, to the Angry Chicken. And as always, Dills is here, Jocelyn is here, me, Garrett is here. We're all back. Welcome back, everyone.
Did we go somewhere?
No.
Where am I back from?
We're back from not doing a podcast for 6 days.
For a second, I thought I had a very exciting
break.
adventure.
Took a whole 6 day break. Yeah.
Our standard 6 day break.
I'm excited for today's show. We decided that we're going to bring back something we haven't done in a while, and that is Cluck the Meta. And that is what we will be doing during today's strategy segment. And if you've never been around for one of those, we build a deck on the show. And it's usually kind of ridiculous, and it is in no way in line with what people are playing right now.
Yeah, and it's probably not going to win, but that's fine because, it's not designed to just win all the games. It's designed to do something weird that no one else is doing.
Exactly.
Although sometimes we do end up winning some games, like the Confuzzle Priest was actually pretty decent.
We were kind of ahead of the curve on that one. Like Combo Priest, became a thing in recent Hearthstone history.
Not with Confuse, but yes,
no,
it did.
but the concept of what we were trying to do, and it wasn't just Confuse. We just liked the name.
Sure.
I mean, we had the other.
We had all kinds of flippy things.
But we were trying to do 3 or 4 minions getting in for 8 or 16 each or something like that, rather than just like the one minion that you make gigantic and then swing in. Which, by the way, like that deck, I think is just always going to be a thing. It's just one of those things that's going to go in and out because those are just classic cards, classic and basic cards, right?
Yeah, and classic and basic cards that no one is complaining about. Right? Like, no one is up there releasing videos or on podcasts saying, yeah, Divine Spirit, get rid of it. Needs to go.
Inner Fire.
That, Inner Fire, and Mana Worm. They're public enemy number 1 and 2.
By the way, Zalay just made a video talking about the current state of
Hearthstone. That's what I was referencing.
Suggested Mana Worm, and I was like, thank you, somebody else talking about Mana Worm. Like, I feel like
I thought you were going to say Inner Fire, and I was like,
No, but talking about, like, I feel like talking about Mana Worm is something like a lot of people we all acknowledge that it's very good, but we don't acknowledge it as being a problem very often.
Well, Zalay got you mentioned this too, but Zalay really got to the core of the issue, which is Mage isn't oppressive right now, so it's not in the public consciousness as far as having anything that needs to be adjusted horribly, especially Ice Block is gone. We've dealt with that, right? That was the big thing a lot of folks were talking about for the longest time, but just because it's not oppressive doesn't mean that there's still not a problem card that's been around too long that we're all a little tired of dealing with.
Well, also right now it's the only card that is in its category, right? Like Tunnel Trog is no longer a thing. It's the only one that was printed in the basic classic set, so it's just here for the long haul, apparently. And and he brought up why it's an issue, which is if it comes out on turn 1, you just lose. If it doesn't, you maybe win. But it's like that's not how a card game should operate. You shouldn't have a card that on turn 1 is like that powerful that it swings the game that crazily, right? It's like when I play Odd Rogue, I don't think, oh man, if I get my Squire on 1, I'm just gonna win. It's just I did something on 1, cool. Now we move forward. But sometimes Mana Worm on 1, you're just like, oh, there's no way to kill that. I just took 12 damage, and he's a mage with fireballs and missiles and all that kind of stuff. So I'm dead. And
and even if you can, even as the opponent, if you can kill it on turn 1, you're then normally on the back foot, right? Well,
how do you kill it on 1 currently? A shaman can lightning bolt?
I was going to say shaman lightning bolt.
I am also a mage, and I frostbolt it.
Yeah.
Well, a coin frostbolt it.
Yeah.
So you spend a coin and 2 mana to deal with this 1 drop.
Yeah. It's clearly.
It's not, there's not like an obvious, I do this and it's dead. Even like Rogue, I backstab coin dagger it. It's just like, wow, that's a lot of stuff you just did to deal with this card that I was just like 1 mana. So yeah, it's like right now it's just in a weird spot where nothing lines up with it anymore. Whereas remember, and Zalay actually brought this up. Remember, there's a time where it was, I Tunnel Trog or I Haunted Creeper, right? And then it's like Haunted Creeper definitely measures, yes, coin haunted creeper, but there was powerful 1 and 2 drops. We're at a point now where people are like, oh, there's no 2 drops that are any good. Okay, Kelliseth, I guess. And that's the state of Hearthstone right now. So it's the one drop that just outshines everything else.
The chat room brings up Soulfire, which is true, but also brings up
this card's a card.
Yes, but think of what you're usually killing with Soulfire, and that's 4 mana and above minions, which makes it feel better when you're discarding things. And it's like,
not to mention you're discarding something that you've probably mulliganed for.
Yeah, no, it's a 2 for 1, so immediately you're down on card advantage. Now, yes, you're a warlock, so you can tap, but being down on card advantage because of their 1 drop, because you're that scared of it, that's, I think,
a little scary.
It's time to take a look at that card. This is one of the things that, the whole discussion we had last week about the meta stuff. And there's no changes we want to make. It's kind of like, well, you don't have to make changes to Boomsday cards. You could just make some changes. This could be the time. This could be the time to look at Manowar. But
I concur. And while we're patting Zale's back while he's not here, which is weird, I enjoyed that he brought up the meta, because last week, I know, Dills, you were very happy with it. And I'm like, I'm not. It's very rock, paper, scissors, and I don't love it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm happy about it. I'm more positive. The thing is, it's hard to know, like, what exactly are we supposed to define as a good meta, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we struggle with this all the time. It's like, oh man, there's this one oppressive deck. This meta sucks. Oh man, all these decks have a counter, and then it's rock, paper, scissors. This sucks. It's like, what is the good meta, Well,
and the conversation can go in so many different directions, right? Historically on this show, I feel it has come down to another game mode would be cool. What if we had bans? What if it was a best of format?
Bans is something I was just going to mention, because I feel like that was part of the conversation last week too, is comparing the ladder meta to the tournament meta. And I think the tournament meta feels a lot better, because I was thinking about this after the show. I think the tournament meta feels a lot better, and it's a lot more engaging and interesting to watch because you can actually ban a deck. I feel like the ladder meta would probably feel great right now too, if you could just ban.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, that's I think something we didn't mention last week is that's the one thing, because there was a time when I definitely didn't want bans on the ladder. Now it just feels like it just makes too much damn sense to just ban one class, because there isn't the one class that everyone would ban, right?
Right, exactly. I think that's the difference.
Right now, yeah, exactly, because we've talked about this in the past, right? And we said, oh yeah, well, imagine the reign of Face Hunter. If bans were in when Face Hunter was big, Face Hunters would just be playing other Face Hunters, and that's why you could never have a ban in the game. But if we have achieved this Hearthstone singularity, which we find ourselves in, where there are multiple viable decks across all 9 classes, but it also leads to some extremely polarized matchups.
Lots of Polaroids out there.
Yeah. Lots of Polaroids. Just, old school selfies. You got to tack them up on your corkboard. It also leads to all these polarized matchups, that this is probably a great time to start having that conversation about bans. And this is kind of, I guess, what I would have liked to have seen last week when that post came out. And, here's a bunch of cool stuff for new players. And here the tournament thing is going away. And I was like, well, what I think one of the reasons I've been thinking about it, and also I've gotten a lot of tweets and emails from folks kind of getting in on the conversation. I think part of the reason I had like such a strong reaction last week, not only because all 3 of us have been talking about tournaments in Hearthstone for years now, but also that they didn't really follow it up with, and here's something we might be working on. Here's maybe something.
Here's the replacement.
Right. Just anything. I kind of called, like, it's dramatic, but I was like, I just want a little sign of hope for the old school players. People have been here for the long haul. And something like that would have been cool. They've been getting better about talking to us about things they're not sure of. Like, they've been a lot better about kind of coming to the table and being like, this is what we're thinking about. We're not sure it's going to happen, but we'll see. And I would have liked to have seen something like that for features for more seasoned Hearthstone players. And I think a potential ban or something of that nature could be that kind of olive branch.
Well, and I'm not thinking that it's actually going to be announced at BlizzCon or anything crazy like that, but like BlizzCon would be the time to announce it, because December is the off month in this, like, there's no HCT points involved in December whatsoever. Our 3 seasons for 2018 are done. Like, if you were ever going to do something that was going to impact the ladder in a new and possibly successful, possibly not successful way, December's the month to test it in. So like, Hearthstone, get on it right now. Let's have bans in December. See how it goes.
Honestly, it makes a lot of sense just because they're using, like, if you want to use the ladder to determine HCT points and things, then yeah, a ban makes tons of sense, because then you can actually test strategies. Yeah, you could test viable strategies on the ladder, because let's say I want to work on my odd rogue play. I know that I am going to be banning odd warrior when I get to these tournaments, so I'm just going to ban it on the ladder, and then I don't have to play this matchup that I know I'm not going to be doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, it's silly to me that there's no comparable way to put those two things next to each other, and yet one feeds into the other, right? So yeah, it's really silly at this point. And yeah, if we ever get to a point where one deck becomes oppressive, at this point, I think now the systems are in place to fix that deck and still continue to allow the bans, right? Because that was always the issue before, is, oh, well, then nobody, everybody just bans mid-range shaman, and, then what happens? It's like, that's not an issue anymore. We can fix the the decks that are oppressive, and then allow this to be more of like what the flow of a tournament type of scene is.
I think even in a meta, like, I agree, right now bans seem to make a lot more sense, but even in a meta where there is one oppressive deck, basically if you allow a ban, then the ladder is just always going to mirror tournaments, right? Because even when there was one well, yeah, and even when there was always like one oppressive deck in the tournament scene, that was just what got banned, and then you built a lineup around that. You know what I mean? Like
other things,
yeah, like even we still had tournaments with bans in a time where we had only one oppressive deck. So if it worked for tournaments and was allowed over there, why not just do it on ladder?
Yeah, because basically the way it would work is everyone would bring that deck expecting it to get banned, and then it was all about the rest of the decks that you'd play. So, and what would happen on the ladder essentially is, let's say there was this one, let's say it's the Q block era, and I queue with Q block, and then my queue takes forever, and then I stop queuing with Q block, and I go,
then you just play one of your other decks, yeah,
and then I play something else, but I know that I don't have to play against the Q block. Yeah, it's kind of self-correcting. There is one kind of issue though, I guess, which is that then their data would be skewed weirdly, but I don't, there's still enough Hearthstone games being played day to day. I think their data is just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and right now with most decks, if you only got one ban, there's still a decision to be made. Like you can't cover all of your worst matchup bases, right? Like if I was playing Odd Rogue, for example, it's like, do I want to risk my ban on Odd Warrior because it's so bad, but I don't see Warriors that often? Do I put it into something that I know I'm going to see more often, like Odd Paladin, even though it's a slightly more favored matchup, but still unfavored? So yeah, I think, in this meta at least, stats I would think would be fine.
Well, you could, you just get to play the deck that you want to play, knowing that you can throw away the horrible matchup, right? And and that allows you to have a little more freedom in what you play. Because right now I feel like I'm kind of locked into playing one of the rock, paper, or scissors, right? So even though, there's a variety of decks, I don't really have an option. Right now it's like mid-range strategies aren't really working that well. It's like you either have to be like comboing somebody, aggroing somebody, or controlling and taking to fatigue, right? And there's that fourth thing that just isn't really working because it just dies to aggro, it gets controlled and loses its board, or it's like it's comboed out, right? And so it's just, we're at a weird spot where the rock paper scissors is so heavy right now that you do feel locked in, even though there is technically all this freedom and so many decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I like the idea of bans too, because I feel like it adds an extra little bit of complexity, since we've somewhat lost the kind of deck building complexity because of all these sites like, Meta Snapshots and Hearth Stats and all this kind of different sites that have all the decks and all the stats and everything else. Like, we've lost a little bit of that deck building test for the majority of players. I think still the ones at the very top are the ones who are innovating and thinking outside the box. But for the most part, the ladder is made up of a lot of net decks. So if you had to throw bans in there too, then, you're going to have to look at well, like Garrett was saying, do I ban my worst matchup when it's only 1% of my matchups, or do I ban maybe my third worst matchup because I see it more often? Or, like and then what am I seeing at my actual rank? What am I seeing, as I move up? And there's that extra little bit of complexity there that you could like ban a different deck, like at a different rank and stuff, like, or a different class, sorry, at a different rank. So I think like it would add more complexity and more, it's another layer of skill testing to be done on the ladder, where if it's going to feed into our championship, we should be testing skills, all of the skills.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think. If there's any through line through all of the many conversations we've had around wanting tournaments, wanting bans, wanting a best of format, whatever it may be, that the through line is just wanting us a closer experience in the game to what we watch on our streams at home.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I very much enjoy with other esports and other Blizzard esports. Here's the Storm at one time didn't have bans. Now it does. Mm-hmm. Now I get to watch HGC and I get to queue up for a multitude, like 3 different modes, by the way, that all give me a very similar experience to the competitive play of Heroes. Yes, I'm not deluded enough to think that I play as good as any professional players, or that the 4 other random people I have been matched up with, that we're going to just mind meld and make sick plays. But it's just one added layer that I really enjoy as a fan of the game. So I don't know. It's just places I was putting my brain. Overall, the feedback from last week's episode has been really fascinating and some really good conversations. Like only I think once I saw you just want tournament mode, no one else wants it. I'm like, you're missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
I did see somebody say, like, a lot of people were quoting these 99% of people don't want it type of stuff. I'm just like, you're just making that up.
You don't know that. You have no way of knowing that.
Give me an argument that has some sort of basis in reality. Like, you don't just get to walk in here and be like, hey man, I talked to every other Hearthstone player. They don't want, like, no.
I've got to say, I was definitely guilty of that one time in the episode last week when I said, like, most pro players, but still, yeah. No, I'm definitely guilty of that.
It's hard not to throw a little hyperbole in sometimes. Yeah, but
exactly.
When it happens to that level, it often just makes me turn your entire point off. I just go, everything you said after that is now considered invalid in my brain. So watch out for that.
Well played.
Yeah. I mean, even XR put out a call for feedback this week and said basically the same thing. Like, I want to know what you like and what you don't like. Don't just say most X agree with Y.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's unhelpful. So it's an interesting place to put your brains, and so that's what got me thinking. I'm just like, yeah, even if that's true, if most players don't want tournament mode, there's still an argument for added layers to the game that we play. Is kind of my point. So
yeah, and we're about to hit a very interesting season here, where I'm gonna be keeping an eye on lots of stuff, which is Artifact release, Magic the Gathering, and open beta. There's a relaunch, right, of whatchamacallit. They're like changing the game around. What's the friggin' game with the life coach plays now?
Gwent.
Yeah, apparently they're gonna like retool that game quite a bit. So there's gonna be a lot of interesting talk about other online card games, and where does Hearthstone then fit into that? To that, like, obviously right now, top dog as far as eyes on it and total players and things like that. But the puzzle was very like it was a barren wasteland before, and that wasteland is about to get filled up pretty much with a lot of other options. So it'll be interesting.
And these options are really interesting because there have been obviously other games that have been available, Eternal, Shadowverse, like we've talked about these on the show.
Eternal's putting out a tournament mode, by the way. I just got an email.
Oh my God. Oh, that
freaking of course.
I'm out. Done.
Starting next week, the Anger Check-In will become an internal podcast, and we will.
My point is that now all the properties that you mentioned, like Gwent, had a really good, like, they have a solid player base right now, and if they're retooling to make things even better, that's going to make them an even stronger competitor. You've got Magic that's pulling from 25, 30, I don't even know how many years of
25 plus years,
of like card game experience. It's the sort of thing that Hearthstone was based on in the first place. they're finally bringing a digital client to the table that is going to be a competitor to Hearthstone. And then you've got Artifact, which is backed by, Valve and crazy, ridiculous amounts of money. And, they're taking a swing at it real hard. These are going to be some serious competitors that are all coming at the same time. And I think Hearthstone is going to have some issues. Potentially,
it can't rest on its laurels.
It can't do nothing.
Yeah, because for the longest time, it's like, well, our game is just the better game, and it looks the best, and it feels the best, and it's the best to watch. That might not be true to the extent that it currently is.
Yeah.
In 3 months, and so it's going to be an interesting time in Hearthstone's kind of history here.
Yeah.
The first time I feel like they're really going to get challenged. And
by some really heavy hitters with a lot of money.
Yeah. I want to see them respond the way that, because I'm rooting for Hearthstone, man, to come out swinging. I'm not rooting for Hearthstone.
to get kicked in the balls and fall over and give up.
My favorite game currently to play is still Hearthstone. And I play a lot of Magic right now. I'm playing a lot, I'm dabbling in all the other card games. I still keep on heading right on back to Hearthstone because there's just something about the gameplay and just how everything works. It's just so satisfying and fun and kind of perfect. But there's the other things that are wearing thin. And I don't want to feel like something outside of the gameplay is making the gameplay less fun to me. Right. And that's kind of where we've gotten to.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, there's my brain goes in so many different places. And I feel like the first kind of pushback would be counterpoint would be, well, it's the most popular, it's the most accessible, and you hit on something there that I found interesting, which was, we used to just be able to say, it's just about the better game, because you look at Magic Gathering Online, and you're like, well, yeah, I get to play real Magic, but I need to decode the worst interface on God's green earth to play real Magic.
Yeah, and also I will say, even MTG Arena is always going to struggle with this, that and they've done a great job of simplifying the turn structure and everything like that, and how there's so many different phases that you go through in a single turn. And when you play across the table for somebody, you just say, yeah, sure, okay. In response, so that flow is hard to replicate. They've done a really good job, but Hearthstone's flow is just natural, right? So they still always will have to deal with that, but it's better than it was, and it's closer, and it's now more of a competitor because of that.
Yeah. And so I don't know. That's kind of my point. Is going forward, the discussions, the debates around Hearthstone. Is it on top? Is it not on top? Is it still the best game? Are going to, I think, start coming down to what it does better than others and what others do better versus it. And at the moment, it looks like it's still going to win out with accessibility. Especially, my God, I don't understand what's going on with Artifact and their monetization plan. It sounds terrible from the outside looking in. But
I find it hard to watch too, but that's also because I'm not currently playing a bunch of it. So we'll see how that
definitely changes. Way more complicated, and it is very much like Dota in a card game.
It is. Yeah.
So anyone who's familiar with Dota is going to have a smaller barrier to entry than if you try to just go straight Hearthstone into Artifact. That's going to be tough.
Hearthstone to any card game is a little bit of a leap because Hearthstone systems are so simple. It's like the complexity is found in other places. It's not like comparing checkers to chess or something like that, but there is the complexity is a lot more nuanced and stuff like that. Whereas in Magic, the complexity is right in front of your face. It's this card does 8 things. It's complex, right? And that's where you find all the complexity there, and also things like mana bases and blah blah blah. So it's just Hearthstone's figured out this thing where it's you cannot play Hearthstone and watch this, right? It's like the football of card games.
Yeah.
And then Artifact is like the golf of card games. If you're not a golfer, you are not going to find watching golf interesting.
Oh, that's insulting to Artifact. It's not that boring to watch.
What, Artifact?
Yeah.
Golf is not that boring to watch. Artifact, you literally have no idea what's happening if you don't play it. You're just
there's a club hitting a ball again and again and again.
At least with golf, you're the ball went in the hole. I get that. That's the goal. Artifact, you're wait, didn't he just kill his tower? How come he doesn't win? It's you got to kill 2 out of 3 towers. Oh, but then the tower comes back. Okay. Oh, then why is he buying stuff? What's going on here?
Send your emails in defense of golf's watchability to we're not going to pick this back up at gmail.com. It's good. It's interesting. I don't know. These are some of the calmer places my brain went since last week. So it's not really news, so I'm not going to play the news bumper. How did everybody's Days of the Frozen Throne go?
It's whatever.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my 600 gold, but I really wish that they had done a better job with it.
I actually forgot about it. Only got one of the 2 quests. So only got 300 gold, and I was kind of like, meh, okay.
So the problem with it is
Jaina?
I really do think that the Tavern Brawl itself was a great idea executed poorly.
Because, I'm with you, yeah.
Yeah, the Death Knights versus the Death Knights is a super cool idea, but what they needed to do was balance it by pre-building the decks to then balance these Death Knights, right? Because Mage is so far out in front of everybody else. It's not even funny. The decks are like randomized, which makes no friggin' sense. Just build like a deck where the Mage gets the weakest deck and the strongest Death Knight, and then give, Shaman a deck that actually makes sense for the Shaman Death Knight. You could actually balance it if you did that. But instead what you got was just a mess of Jaina versus Jaina matchups where it's like, if I got a water elemental first, then I snowballed the game out of control and I won, right? And a lot of people were just conceding as soon as they saw Jaina. And then you do the quest. So then, okay, the problem too was the first quest you get, they did the quest like in the wrong order. The first quest you get was play 40 Frozen Throne cards, right? Which then you're like, oh, well, I know what to do. I'll play the Tavern Brawl. And then you go in the Tavern Brawl and you play like 8 games to try to get this done. Then all of a sudden the second one pops up and it's like, win 5 Tavern Brawls. You're like, no. Tavern Brawls.
Well, there's where you messed up right there. You should have done what I did. You go into your collection manager, you pick Druid.
That is what I did, but this is what a lot of people
do. You just throw nothing but Frozen Throne cards in a Druid deck, you go to Wild, and you win 2 games and you're done with the quest.
So actually, the best one is Rogue for Frozen Throne, because Rogue has that Bone Baron that makes 2 little 1/1 skeleton bros, and those count as Knights of the Frozen Throne cards when you play.
Fancy.
Yeah, they go into your hand.
Yeah, but I also like winning on the back of it, so Ultimate Infestation, I just win.
See, that's why I went to Casual Wild.
Right. Yeah. Rogue just has so many draw cards too that I was like, I'm just gonna do that, and I got it done. And that's what I did. I did it on all my accounts. I got it done super fast. But I'm just saying, most people aren't going to think of that, and then they're gonna go into the damn Tavern Brawl.
That's what I started to do, and then I was just like, this is slow, and everyone's playing Jaina. I'm gonna just go throw a bunch of Frozen Throne cards into a deck and go hit the Wild ladder, because my
by the way, though, if you just choose Jaina, you will get probably 2 or 3 concedes to make that second quest go a little bit faster.
Yeah. I had 1 free concede against my Jaina in trying to get the 5 wins, but then the rest were all against Jainas, and I gotta say, honestly, kind of interesting games.
No, they're not. They're not unfun. The Jaina versus Jainas, they're interesting, and there's a lot of trying to figure out how to not let them ping something. You know what I mean? But
that's.
But then there were games. The random deck got so annoying because they would get a bunch of 1 health minis. They could just play their own 1 health. Like I was playing one where I got a Snow Flipper Penguin and a Wisp, and I was like, oh, I just win. Like, look at this 0. I got turn 2 Water Elemental.
Into turn 3 Water Elemental.
Just burn don't have that part and just build us some decks. That balance this.
That was the interesting thing, and that was the only thing that was talked about over the weekend in community forums. I was like, man, and it's kind of ridiculous, right? Because when you think about it, it's like, well, it's free gold. They didn't have to give us. It's an event that they didn't have to do. But there is a conversation I think to be had about the science of fun, right? Hearthstone is very
at least people were talking about Tavern Brawl.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's weird. And they did a behind the scenes developer insights on Days of the Frozen Throne. We thought about it and workshopped it in 1 day, and I was like, it kind of feels like that. We can tell.
Pretty obvious that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. There was so much for me. It was like there was so much potential for awesome because even in the end, I ended up having some really fun games, mirror match wise, of Frostlich Jaina versus Frostlich Jaina. And when I kind of framed it in that way, I'm like, well, if I think about this as like some weird adventure thing where it's where the mini game is play around leaving minions at 1 health, it was a fun way to play Hearthstone. But overall, yeah, this could have been way cooler. Pun intended.
Frozen Throne could have been cooler.
And then Dills, last week you showed up on the show and you're like, let me tell you about Res Priest. Res Priest is amazing. Res Priest is the shit. And then Asmodai went and got rank 1 legend with it a couple days later. And you and I streamed it on your stream together. Actually the night after we recorded that episode. And
it is the hot deck now. A lot of people are playing it. It's usually what happens is somebody gets rank 1 with an off meta deck, and then it's all the rage. So his version was much better than mine. So definitely, if you are into that deck, go find his version. It's on his Twitter. It's actually probably the #1 version on HS Replay right now, because of that. So yeah, definitely give that deck a try right now. It's in a good spot.
Has an ass ton of games played now on HS Replay.
Does it really?
If you pull it up, I think, let's see, 70,000 for this
Wow.
one
It
particular
is now the
deck
top
list.
priest deck, which before was still the Mechathune priest.
Yeah. Although this version's sitting at a 51% win rate, but I would say this is because there's a lot of folks piloting this deck who haven't played it before. That's probably...
Well, so here's the other thing, too. There's a very interesting statistic that is not really tracked here. Like, you can kind of track it if you just kind of click around a little bit, but it's not like obviously tracked. But if you look like legend only, legend to 5, legend to 10, but then what they don't have is they don't have like top 100 legends to, legend 100 to 200, that kind of thing. If you look at a deck like this or some of the other little more complex decks like Control Priest and Odd Warriors and stuff, their win rates skyrocket when they get to the higher ranks of legend, because it's just people not making poor decisions, right? A deck like this is very hard to mulligan with. It's so hard to know what cards you need in your opening hand, because you don't just like play on curve, you just kind of do some stuff, and then at a certain point flip everything around and start winning, and that's hard to wrap your head around when you're doing the mulligan phase. So yeah, the win rate goes up and up and up the higher up the ranks you get.
Yeah. And then you made me make it, which meant I had to make myself a Malagos, which I have never had, because to me it's always been a niche card that has never been in archetypes I was that excited about playing. And I was gifted 40 classic packs by our friend Chris, who kicks ass and didn't have to do that. And Garrett Luck is now dead. Garrett Luck is in the grave because I cracked 4 legendaries within about 15 packs of each other. One was a golden net peggle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it was this wonderful stroll down used to be good lane, because I opened a Nat Peggle, I opened a Tinkmaster Overspark. All the while Dills is like, "What do you mean you don't have these cards?" I'm like, "Dills, these haven't been good since beta. Calm down."
I don't disenchant the old legendaries, because I just want to have all the cards if possible. It's like completionist in me.
I've mentioned my budgets before. Like I have a budget I adhere to for each expansion, so things get disenchanted. But yeah, I also got Millhouse and Illidan Stormrage, which I also didn't have. So, rip Garrett Luck.
Gone forever.
I hope so. I really do.
No, now you're just screwed for the next expansion. That's all.
But it's a classic. It should be fine. They should be untethered. But yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking purely from a luck standpoint. Now you blew it all on classic.
Okay, fair. You're
now
probably
you got like 3 legendaries and 120 packs.
You're probably right. Well, before we move into news, we need to thank our sponsor today, Super Chewer BarkBox. They are a monthly delivery of tough toys and more for your dog. And you might be thinking to yourself, but Garrett, you have Chihuahuas. And to that I would say, you do not understand what tiny little needle teeth can do. Like the damage. It's real, man. It's real. So anyway, Super Chewer is pretty rad. You head on over to the website. You let them know your dog's size. When in doubt, just size up. It's fine. That's okay. You'll see when you get over there. And then you can choose a plan. They have 1, 6, and 12-month plans available. And it's really cool. I got one. Dills, did you get a Super Chewer box?
I did, and it's pretty incredible because I got 2 toys that Iggy has not destroyed yet, and this is about a week ago. And he toys don't last very long with him, but they were both incredibly durable, and they're actually both still on the floor. And he's ignored his other toy. He used to love this like antler thing. He's over that now, and he's on to the squeaky ball toy that they sent. Also, they sent 2 different types of treat, which Iggy was super excited about. I opened the whole box on stream, and it was like Christmas time for Iggy. He loved it.
Our 2 Chihuahuas are losing their minds. Our older Chihuahua is like, well, fine. He's pretty moderate chewer, but Zelda, our girl, who is only a little over a year old, just tears through things. So I've been really impressed by the resilience of the toys that came in this box. The toys come with the fluff-free guarantee. They're never going to send Super Chewer toys that are filled with fluff. They really do focus on durable materials that kind of keep your dog busy. The treats that you flashed on screen, Dills, are always all natural, and they're only made in the U.S. or Canada. So North America only for these treats.
Yeah, and they sent one. It was like one that was a beef kind of treat and one that was a chicken kind of treat. So it's, not just here's something that's not good for your dog that maybe your dog can't have. It's just like, yeah, really nice, good stuff. And I'm pretty picky about treats. So yeah, grain-free, wheat-free, corn-free, soy-free. This is what I will actually give to my dog.
One might say, rank 1 treat legend, NA.
That's right. One might say that.
Yep.
One Garrett might say that.
And this isn't a one-off. Every Super Chewer box comes with 6 products that total over $50 in value. But with a subscription, you can pay as little as $29 a month. So, of course, for Angry Chicken listeners, there is an offer for you. For a limited time, you can get 50% off your first month of Super Chewer on a 6 or 12-month plan by going to superchewer.com/TAC50 and enter the promo code TAC50 at checkout. Again, that's 50% off your first month of Super Chewer when you get a 6 or 12-month plan by going to superchewer.com/TAC50 and entering the promo code TAC50 at checkout. We thank you for checking out that website, and we thank Super Chewer for their support. Now, let's get into this week's Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
Oh, no.
I got so many comments on last week's bumper. It was wonderful.
Well, we're back to good news. Yay!
Yay! Really just news we didn't have time to talk about last week, but it has been confirmed that Dual Class Arena is returning for this year's Hallows End. Yes!
This is my favorite kind of arena. I wish this was just an always can play it arena mode, because I would just always play it.
Agree entirely. All right. Show's over. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I honestly, I don't even care about dual arenas. I'm so focused on just still trying to play the meta decks and the weird wild stuff. I do need to dip my toes into arena in this expansion because I feel like I've just been neglecting it. Sorry, Eduardo Burbs. Sorry. I just can't find it interesting right now.
They're judging you.
But I will say, Dual Arena was super fun last time. I imagine it'll be super fun this time. It'll be good times. I'm excited for it.
But we're also in the last week of HGG before BlizzCon. What's going on with that, Jocelyn?
Yeah, so they were actually playing today, right now. And so there's games today, tomorrow, and Thursday. They're in the last week before the finals for BlizzCon. So Spain, Bulgaria, New Zealand, and China all won their groups. So they are all going to BlizzCon. So we're in the elimination rounds now. And
not looking good for USA, is it? That's what I've heard.
It was 1-1 right before the show. I don't know how they've done in the last 45 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, they are. So they're playing against Taiwan, I want to say.
Yeah, so they lost.
And the winner will face against Singapore, I think.
Yeah, USA lost to Singapore in a 3-2, and now they're going up against Taiwan.
Okay.
Oh, they lost 3-1.
Uh-oh.
according to chat room. This apparently has not been
I'm
updated.
Just looking at
That's probably a wrap on that. Okay.
Yeah, they lost 3-1. So now Singapore and Chinese Taipei are still in. They have an elimination match tomorrow. Who else is still in? Portugal and Brazil are going to have an elimination match. Then we have the UK and Hong Kong, and who's the other one? Oh, Norway and Ukraine. So the winners of those decider matches will be going to BlizzCon, and then we'll have our top 8 of HGG is going to be played out at BlizzCon. So there will be some sort of esports-ish stuff going on at BlizzCon, even though it won't be the World Championship again.
Sweet.
Sad face.
Well, rip the US, but that just is more of an excuse to play new Hearthstone instead of watching Hearthstone. Which I'm okay with that. I'm sure that
also the HGG cheer thing is happening now. So if you guys are interested in doing that, there's the card back. There's a bunch, I think. So guys, I did it because there's a card back. So I cheered and I feel awful, but I did it.
How much money did you spend on that card back, Jocelyn?
It's like $25, but you get 22 packs in addition to your card back.
Oh, that's fine.
So it's 2,500 bits.
That's not bad. If you got that many packs as well, that's fine.
And I had a bunch of Twitch bits just like sitting there. So, I mean, I still have more than that left over on my account, but I'm just sitting there and I'm like cheering. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's not a bad deal. It's just not a good deal either, right?
Yeah.
So do the peripherals matter to you or not, right? Do you care about getting some sweet new emotes? Do you care about that kind of like, there's community rewards that I guess we still don't know because they're based on goals that we hit as a community. So
they show you like how far we are away from the milestone, but then they don't actually say what the milestone is, which I feel like is kind of a mistake if they're trying to make money, because we should know what we're working for, at least the next goal. Like, I don't know why they're hiding it, but anyways. But I mean, and the other great thing is that yes, it cost me 2,500 bits that went but all that money doesn't go straight to Blizzard, right? It's split 50-50 between
50-50 players and Blizzard. Yeah.
So, I mean, there is that too, that the players are getting some money out of this. So I did cheer for USA because Canada wasn't an option. So
I wish personally that was a better split than it is, but you know, I'm also asking a company to not make as much money as they can. So I know that's kind of a losing proposition. So, you know,
yep,
what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's better than I thought it was. I hadn't done any of the math, so that's to me that's not that bad.
No, it's not terrible. Yeah.
And I definitely am not. I don't get stoked about Twitch emotes.
I like Twitch emotes.
Listen, I get stoked about yours and Dill's and Kyle's emotes. That's it, though. That's really it.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't for the emotes. I'll be honest. It was for the card back.
You gotta have it.
That's why I did it.
I mean, it's like super purpley, right?
It is, and but it's still not in the game, so yeah, it's not available yet. So it says that my account is unlocked. So if you go to the Twitch page, make sure before you start cheering that you have tied your Blizzard account to your Twitch account. There's a little Blizzard logo right next to the chat box as soon as you scroll under the video, and it'll say Blizzard, and there's a big green check mark if your account is linked properly. Make sure you do that before you start throwing bits, or it won't actually give you the rewards. So
you should be doing anyway. They give away some rad stuff.
They give away a lot of stuff
randomly. Like, man, I barely touch Overwatch anymore, but you better believe I've gotten each and every one of those legendary boxes we haven't out for free. Not to mention the Golden Hearthstone packs and.
Yeah, and the some of the Heroes I think is probably the best as far as I know in terms of giving things out. You can just when they have the special events on, you can just watch Heroes streams, and there's a chance that you'll just get loot boxes for having a stream open. So when the event's on, I leave my Twitch on 24/7 on random Heroes streams.
Yeah, I forget about it, and then I get in game. I'm like, where'd this chest come? Oh yeah, sweet. I was watching Octalysis versus Freedom the other night, and those games were great, by the way. Go watch them. Not a Heroes podcast.
So yeah, there's lots of reasons to tie your Blizzard account to your Twitch account, but yeah, you should have done that already. But just in case, that's a thing to check before you go and start cheering. Also, Midnight Bomber in the chat room is pointing out you don't even necessarily have to buy your bits. You can watch ads and earn bits that way. So there are ways to get bits that aren't straight up buying them. So
yeah, Midnight Bomber's saying he's already collected 500 free bits.
seems good, man. You're 1/5 of the way to your card back.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of ads to watch, but
yeah,
like if you have a desk job or something like that, you could just sit there and kind of click it whenever you notice, and eventually you'll get there.
I bet your boss is so on board with that.
Mm-hmm. Bosses love that kind of stuff.
Oh, damn you, open concept workplaces. Oh, wonderful. Well, before we collect the meta, we have one more sponsor to thank for today, and that's HelloFresh, and I would like to thank them for, again, keeping me alive. That's right. Without HelloFresh, God only knows what I would be eating. So you should go check them out over at hellofresh.com/TAC60. Why that? Well, I'll explain at the end. But if you're not familiar with HelloFresh, you should definitely go check them out. It's a meal kit delivery service. It shows up right to your door. They have 3 plans to choose from. You can get the classic, which is what I do. They also have a veggie option. Or if you are cooking for a larger family, they have a family option. And everything comes pre-measured and handy labeled meal kits. And there's step-by-step instructions with pictures. So if I can do it, you can do it. It's very easy to feel confident because, oh man, I love the recipes. Does anyone else just have like a stack of recipe cards of just like, I like this? We have like a greatest hits collection of HelloFresh.
we like hole punch them in the corner, and then we have like a metal ring that opens, so we can just, when we get new ones that we like, we just hole punch them, add them, and hang them on the fridge.
Nice. Also, more organized than me. When I go for mine, it's like, gotta move my meat scale out of the way. There's the grill tongs. There's my stack of HelloFresh recipes. But it's great, and it's super convenient. It has really it's more or less replaced our weekly grocery store trip, and we don't spend nearly as much time meal planning, which is great because there's Hearthstone news to digest and report on, and games to be played, and bits to cheer and get purple card backs that aren't in the game yet. But it makes a lot more time for nerdy pursuits, and I'm very, very fond of HelloFresh and use it regularly. So check it out, and as always, they have an offer for listeners of The Angry Chicken. You can get a total of $60 off. That is $20 off of your first 3 boxes by going to HelloFresh.com/TAC60. That's HelloFresh.com/TAC60, and using the code TAC60. Again, head on over to HelloFresh.com/TAC60 for $60 off total, $20 off of your first 3 boxes when you go to that URL and enter the code TAC60. We thank them for their support. We thank you for using that URL. Now, I'm going to play the strategy segment bumper because that's what this is taking the place of, and I don't have one for Collect the Meta.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay.
I'll just add this on to make it unique.
Creepy. I like it. Okay.
There we go.
Perfect.
Oh, wonderful. So, if this doesn't explode in my face for video watchers, I'm going to move on over to this layout, and we are looking at Dill's Collection Manager through the glory of the internet.
Wow, we did it.
It's working.
So fancy.
It's working very well, actually.
Yeah, looks real good. All right, so the idea here is we're going to try to make a Eureka Electra Storm Surge OTK deck. Because this is a card that when we saw it, we were like, yeah, I don't see how this is ever good. But maybe we
have
can
a
make
gold
something
one.
good.
You have a gold one, so we have to
I do have a golden one. Yeah.
I
have a golden Electra too. So
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I don't have a golden Malagos though, so
that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Golden Malagos is really pretty too.
I know.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the cards I would love to crack a golden Malagos, but I'm not gonna craft it. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if we could call this the core or the spine of the deck we're about to attempt to build.
The combo that we're looking for here. So essentially, you might be like, hey man, Electra Storm Surge and Eureka pulling out 2 Malagos. You only have 1 mana left. Well, Fire Plume Harbinger will make your Electra Storm Surge cost 1 less. So there you go. Boom. You play that twice, it costs 1. So you play this, Eureka, it summons a copy. So at that point, you need Malagos to be the only minion in your hand. It pulls out 2 Malagai, And then lightning bolt will deal 13. So if you have 2 lightning bolts, that's 26. Frost shock will deal 11. So if you have 1 of each, it's 24, or this will be 22 if you have 2 frost shocks. But you can technically cast 3 of these, which would be well over 30, right? So you're talking, 37 or whatever. So there's lots of damage potential here to just OTK most people, which means you can also use 1, sometimes 2 of these during the game if you need to control the board a little bit. So this is the base. I'm thinking we're probably going to be somewhat close to what Shutterwalk Shaman does as far as the rest of it is concerned, because that's, control the board, draw a bunch of cards, right? And that's kind of what we're hoping to do.
Yeah, I guess my thought is, so the goal is to have Malagos in your hand, Eureka in your hand, Electra Storm Surge in your hand, and that's it.
Discounted in your hand.
Right, discounted in your hand, and no other minions, so that Eureka doesn't misfire.
So you probably don't want to draw, or you probably don't want to play a whole bunch of minions.
You want to go minion light, right?
Yeah,
but you probably do still want certain things, like I'm guessing Mana Tide Totem, right? Because it's awesome.
For card draw. Yeah, and those are things that you probably want to mulligan for and play early.
Yeah. But then there's a couple other interesting ideas here too. So I was looking through the Shaman cards. Storm Chaser might be an interesting card to run, because this will draw our Eureka, and it will also draw, I'm guessing, a card that we're going to be running, which is Volcano, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to be running double Volcano, right?
Yes, I would say for sure.
Yeah, we're going to be controlling the board and stuff. So
you need to survive, and I think 15 damage to the board is going to help you do that.
So this would be kind of an interesting thing, is if we run these, and we have 3 spells essentially. This is these are really important spells. These are crappy bodies to go along with it, but it's like we guarantee that we get those specific cards, and Eureka being one of the specific cards we need to win the game. Seems like that makes sense to me.
Does Fire Plume Harbinger discount a random elemental?
No, it's just all elementals in your hand.
So the fact that the Storm Chasers are also elementals won't change our end.
It won't make, it'll still make Electra go down. We just have to, we can't play this until Electra's in our hand.
Right.
Yeah. So other cards I'm thinking that kind of makes sense. I'm thinking Hagatha makes sense, just because it's a big board wipe type thing too. And also, once we play it, we can kind of generate extra Frost Shocks and Lightning Bolts, potentially.
It makes our extra minions not feel as bad, but it also kind of, how much does it incentivize us to want to include more minions?
Well,
I don't think we really want random spells necessarily, though. I think just the extra armor and the damage to the board is probably enough to just run Hagatha.
I don't think we need to run more minions.
It's not for the hero power. Yeah.
But I think with Hagatha, it also allows us to dump minions out of our hand if we have minions remaining at that moment, and get some value back for them, right? Like find extra volcanoes, find extra other things at that point. If we've got to this late stage of the game, it's like we don't need to run minions because of Hagatha, but Hagatha just allows our minions to then be useful while we just exit them from our hands, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't fill your hand with minions, so
I
feel like it's good. We might not need Hagatha. We might change our mind. I'm thinking hexes.
It's 2 hexes and 2 healing rains, I think, probably, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I guess the question is, and Mana Tide. I guess the question is Lightning Storm a thing for us? Like, do we think we need just all the AoE? I mean,
probably.
There's a lot of stuff out there that will try to kill us really quickly. Farsight. That seems good. Draw a card, make it cost 1 less or 3 less.
3 less, yeah. So now we've got.
You'll be able to use this to get the Eureka and stuff just to cost less anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, the cycle is good for the combo nature of the deck, but sometimes you might high roll and get really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Totally.
So then we've got 6 slots left after all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm thinking more removal, more healing, more draw.
We haven't really. Do we have any neutrals yet?
No.
Well, let's look at draw options and see if because again, we're a combo deck, right? So we just want to draw.
See, we should have built this on my account so we could put in a golden Nat Pagel.
I don't think we're putting in a non-golden or golden net deck.
But Acolyte goes well with Volcano, potentially.
It certainly does. I think Acolytes just make sense, right?
Which is the reason why they should look at Acolyte alongside Mana Worm. But
you know, it's kind of interesting again, those Witchwood Pipers, because they will find us Fire Plume Phoenixes.
Mm.
And the Fire Plume Phoenix is essentially part of the combo, right?
That's
also,
an interesting thought.
If we've drawn both Fire Plume Harbingers, if we've drawn both of those, then next thing it finds us is Electras and Acolytes. So, I feel like Witchwood Piper is one of those cards that kind of snuck up on me as like just kind of a decent card.
I mean, there's so much potential there because it's targeted draw.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how often are you looking for low cost?
Well, and I think the body's more useful than say like a Novice Engineer. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I think that's probably a good amount of draw. So now, is there any other...
Kilmernock in the chat room says, worst case scenario, Witchwood Piper pulls Malagos.
There you go, yeah. I guess the last thing now is what other like removal / heal type things are out there for us?
As a shaman, a lot.
Oh, actually, though, I mean, why don't we just... maybe we don't want to put Gigglings in because they're just minions.
They're minions to get in the way, yeah.
But they are minions that get in the way and help
that's
you live.
true. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
they get
prevent us from dying.
I mean,
if I have to dump those at the end of the game to make, like, I'm not mad about that most of the time.
No, you're probably not dying unless you're. Well, if you're about to die to a mage, you know that you're about to die to that mage. So yeah.
You know, there's another potential thing because I was thinking like the thing we're looking for kind of is heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there?
Just type in heal.
Have that card? Oh my god, I don't have this card. A Mega Mind.
Oh my god, how do you not have a Mega Mind?
I don't know. It's an epic, and I just didn't open it, I guess. If you have 10 mana crystals, your spells have lifesteal. So like if you could play this plus Volcanoes and get like essentially another healing rain effect later on in the game. You can play this plus lightning storms.
But only when you're volcanoing past level 10.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if that's necessary.
Does that heal if you play it with Volcano? Does that heal you for 15 or does that heal you for as many meteors as hit targets? So if there's only 8 health on board, does it heal you for 8?
I think it would just heal you for 8.
Yeah, it should be heal for damage done.
Because at that point, after 8 hits, it just stops casting.
Right.
The other option I'm thinking is maybe Tidal Surges. Because they're heal plus removal, right?
I like Tidal Surge.
Yeah.
Because it also doesn't overload or anything, right? So it doesn't disrupt.
No, it doesn't. So
I got caught mad off guard by a Tidal Surge this past week.
What are the minions that it hits, though, I guess, in the meta right now? Like, it'll hit Hinge Clan Thugs that have been buffed once, which is nice. There's not a lot of, like, other stuff out there. But if you, like, pair it with Lightning Storm and stuff like that.
I mean, most, early game from Zoo, even mid stuff from Zoo is fine. I've seen a lot of Houndmasters coming out from Hunters. There's... And a lot of times, but man, when you're in that scenario, it's good to have the targeted removal because you can't get past the taunt.
Yeah, so like, I don't know. Is there anything that we're like super missing that's really freaking good that we're just like...
Well, one question would be, do we want a way to deal with other people's giggling inventors? Because we don't currently have Blood Knight. We don't have Mossy Horror. Like, do we care?
I don't,
because we do have Volcano, which Volcano will deal with it because of all the kings, right?
I don't think we care because a giggling inventor is not a lot of pressure.
Right.
Like, we're worried about boards that are going to kill us, not really like for
not defensive boards because we're not doing mid damage anyways.
Yeah. I think if they're playing a giggling inventor, we're like, just hit us for 4 a turn. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's the only thing that I feel like is a go-to tech card conversation right now.
The thing that jumps out to me first is that everything in this deck is 2 of except for legendaries, except for Eureka. And Eureka is a key combo piece.
Yeah.
But we have a way specifically to draw it.
We have a way to specifically get it, right? With
elementals,
the
yeah.
Well, providing we've thinned our deck of volcanoes, right?
Yeah, but I think we're fine. I don't think we want to run because Eureka is a completely dead card if we had 2 of them, right?
Yeah, the only thing we want it for is the Malagos combo at the end.
And we still have to find the Malagos. Like with this much draw, I don't think you run double combo.
Well, we are running 2 Manatite Totems. We have a lot of cycle.
Farsights.
All right, so we have Acolyte of Pain, Farsights, Manatite Totem. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just it.
Currently,
actually,
a lot of
plus
decks
Piper and Storm Chaser. That's a lot of deck thinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? One thing we might want actually though. There is a card that draws elementals, isn't there?
Yeah, the Sandbinder right there.
Yeah. Is that better than Witchwood Piper actually? Because it would find us Storm Chasers, it would find us Fire Plume Harbingers, it would find us Electra.
So the only thing it won't pull would be Malagos. So or
Acolytes. But I mean, like those cards are super important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that better than a Witchwood Piper?
I think that's
you're trading a 2/4 body for a 3/3 body, and you're trading.
Now that you bring it up, I think that's the first thing that we swap out for the other when we go to actually play it, and we kind of.
Why don't we just try doing this?
One of each. One Sandbinder, one Witchwood Piper.
And then we'll see which one feels worse.
All right. I like that. I mean,
yeah, like I think either way you're kind of doing.
I feel like I might like Piper best because if you've drawn most of your minions, then it like doesn't whiff until there's no minions left in your deck, right? But Sandbinder,
if there's any minion left in your deck, it'll pull something.
But Sandbinder will whiff if you've drawn your Harbingers, your Storm Chasers.
We've drawn both Storm Chasers, both Harbingers, and Electra. But see, that's pretty low chances to draw all 5 of these.
Oh, it definitely is. It's just because they're just so close in this deck in terms of what we should include that I feel like maybe I'd lean towards Piper. But
the thing is the 2/4 body is slightly better against
bloody tokeny decks.
Yeah, like Odd Paladin, stuff like that. You're gonna want to be able to, like kill more things. So I don't know. That's why I feel like splitting the difference is probably okay here, right? Because you're never probably gonna draw 5 of those before your last Sandbinder.
Yeah,
Sandbinder was also a card that you saw a ton of in early Shutterwalk because. It would find very specific things like glacial shards and grumble and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the card that made things cheaper back in original Shutterwalk when you were trying to OTK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was the Harbinger. But
was it the Harbinger? I couldn't remember if it was that one.
The Harbinger, but they also originally were running the 2-mana make your battle cries happen twice guy.
Murmuring, yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Murmuring.
Yeah. Because then you'd make this cost 1, and then you'd play this with your first Shutterwalk, and then you'd have double Shutterwalk.
Yeah.
We don't really need that. Okay, I think this is it.
I think that's the list, at least to start with. And I'm not going to read the deck list off card for card because that's terrible audio. But for those of you at home, if you'd like to try making your own, again, our core was Electra Storm Surge, Malagos, and Eureka with Frost Shocks and Lightning Bolts. And then we built around that. We will have a link to the deck list in the show notes now that it is complete. And then after the show, we're going to take it for a spin. And I'll throw that video up for the patrons afterwards, too. So
there you go. I'll throw out the deck list here in the chat as well right now.
Yeah. Dig it. So this should be fun. We haven't done this in a long time, and I think the last time we did it, it was the Confused Priest, and I think
it might have been.
Blast to play.
Honorable mention, me and Garrett were just messing around with this off stream before. Mechathune Rogue is probably terrible.
It probably is bad, but boy, it has a lot of heart.
But here's the deal. So there's a couple ways to kill your own Mechathune. One is backstab, prep, avis, prep, avis. Yeah. Seems like a lot of cards, but again, it's Mechathune. You're supposed to have drawn your entire deck by this point anyway, right? But we threw in bonus second way to kill your Mechathune, which is first you play Mechathune, then you Shadow Step Mechathune. That Mechathune costs 8, right?
Yep. And
Then,
the next turn,
galvanize it down to 7.
mm-hmm.
Then one more turn later,
if you're still alive by some miracle,
you Mechathune for 7, you Voodoo Doll your Mechathune, you backstab your Mechathune.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Here's the thing. I mean, all of these things require you to kill your entire deck, which Myra's Unstable Element does pretty well.
Dills, I don't have a deck name for the Shaman deck, which was the point of the episode, but can we please name this Mechathune Rogue Edge Case? Did we lose Dills? Or am I just not that funny?
Well, I laughed, and then he hasn't moved, so
I think we lost Dills.
maybe he's just being total stone face.
Yeah, I think we lost him. Yep. Oh, man, he'd be a great living mannequin. He'd be so good. Well, again, the link to the deck list will be in the show notes. If you're watching live, Dills has already posted it into the chat room. The overlay is exploding, but that's because Dills disconnected and reconnected. Okay. We will fix that shortly.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
I've been having weird internet hiccups lately. It's like I think it's weather related mostly, but
I know it's
really annoying when you're streaming and suddenly everything just turns off.
I know it's dumb, but could you share your screen again just to fix the overlay at least?
Sure. Yeah. Hold on. Oh no! It kicked me out of Hearthstone too.
Oh God, guys, it's porn! It's porn!
Just switch back to the other thing because we're done with that anyway, right?
Yeah. I just need you to share a screen so it puts everyone back where they belong.
Oh, I see. Share any screen,
just share a screen as long as it's 16 by 9. It should fix everything. But in the meantime, now is a good time to thank our patrons, right? We enjoy ourselves, being supported by our listeners. It's very good. I mean, it's been going on a while, right? Like it's nuts that we have this many people supporting us. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So head on over to patreon.com/TAC to support the Angry Chicken if you like what we're doing here. Also, we're going to be throwing up some gameplay videos of this deck afterwards over on the Patreon. But this week, we want to thank some of our newer patrons. Thank you to Fafnir and to Scott L. Thank you for the support, you two. Now it's time to take a crazy game story because we didn't have time for those last week.
Is the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
You can send your crazy game stories to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Lucy writes in today and says, "My greetings, you hell-raising hens. I write from the forests of Gilneas, where I witnessed a truly remarkable feat in the twilight of a blue moon." This is great. I love how you're writing here, Lucy. "I had left the warmth of the tavern on a monster hunt with a tracker by my side. We had made consistent progress through the Witchwood when we happened upon a specter known as the Whisperer. Unsure how the encounter would go, I clutched at the crystal gem in my pouch, which granted an extra mana crystal. Perhaps out of sheer instinct with 2 mana crystals on our first move, Princess Tess invoked her hero power. But with no spells played yet, she discovered only a small rock, which she promptly whipped directly at the Wraith for no expense of mana, thinking it a poor start to the ghostly encounter. But hark! An echo. Something about the phantom returned the tiny stone to the Lady Greymane's hand. Realizing what had happened, my princess threw the pebble again, and it returned to her hand again. 50 small rocks later, the spirit was slain without making a single move against us. I know we monster hunters might be quaint and old-fashioned in an age of mechanical magnetism and goblin doctors, but this adventurer, with a simple quest to complete, has never seen something quite like the tale I've just told you. With love and horror from the Witchwood, Lucy." Lucy, this is one of the best written crazy game stories in the history of 282 episodes of The Angry Chicken.
It very much is. And apparently, because I didn't know this, because I'll be honest, I never played all that much of the Monster Hunt, But apparently, like, because as soon as I was like, oh, I wonder, like, put my investigator Joss hat on. It was like, what does the Whisperer actually do? And then the first thing that popped up was like all these YouTube videos of like, oh my God, OTK, did you guys know you could do this? And I was like, apparently it's a thing. I had never heard of this before.
I always get excited when there's things in Hearthstone I missed and like, discovering for the first time. It's fun. Playing this game for so long, but also you just made me think of silly hats in Hearthstone, and I'm thinking of Ben Brode and Young Woo, and somebody on Team 5 better rep the crazy hat game this year, okay? Because it must be done. It must be.
I just love the idea of sitting there throwing 50 small rocks,
0
at
cost
a ghost.
rocks.
Yeah. Like,
I want to see Cossack or Cossack and Ben Thompson walk out with like giant silk top hats and monocles.
By the way, I think Echo is one of those mechanics that has so much potential and hasn't really reached it.
mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that we see more of it. Like I was showing you my control zoo, which I guess we're going to talk about next week, and it's just like a good deck. And I took out, originally people were running Mountain Giants, but I found that I wasn't playing them very often because I wasn't tapping in early turns. I was, playing zoo style in early turn. So like these Mountain Giants don't really seem to fit. So like, well, what can I throw in? And I just threw in a Glinda, and I had a bunch of games where I was like, Glinda 6, friggin' 1-drops or something like that. And it was super cool. And it's like it's not that expensive to just run a single Glinda.
For listeners that don't remember what the Glinda Crowskin does,
minions echo,
because I don't remember what Glinda Crowskin does. Yeah, she's a 6-mana 3/7 that minions in your hand have echo.
Yeah, and 6-mana 3/7 does suck, but when you follow it up with, a
whole bunch of other minions,
a bunch of 1/3s with taunt, like it's pretty sweet.
That's gnarly.
Yeah,
I like it.
And 3/7 is hard to kill. Like a lot of times you'll get Glinda for multiple turns.
Sweet. Well, let's keep the inbox train rolling and wrap the show up with some emails.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to the same place, tacpodcast@gmail.com. Scott W. writes in and says, hello, Anoyo Chickens. Oh, God, I want this to be a card now. Oh, could you imagine? Does it?
Anoyo Chicken has Divine Shield, Taunt, and Enrage.
Does
Enrage
it?
is no longer a keyword.
Yeah,
though.
not Enrage, but gets real mad and does a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It'll always
5 attack when this happens.
It'll always be enraged to me. Does it say hello or does it cluck?
It would totally cluck 3 times.
Yeah.
That's it. Just it.
Yep.
Sample that. Team 5, you have my permission to sample both Dills and I. For maybe mine is the hit the board and Dills is the attack sound. Jocelyn, we just need a death sound from you right now. Wonderful. There it is. It's done. Take it.
Perfect.
Take it. Anyway, Scott W. continues beyond just saying hello to us and says, I have an idea on how to fix the mid-season expansion law we usually get in. How about they ditch the idea of the year of the blank and instead, during a mid-expansion cycle, they drop the furthest back expansion from 2 years ago. This would create a new meta every 2 months instead of every 4 currently and get rid of the jarring devastation of losing 3 whole sets once a year. Just thought this was a fun idea. And while Scott, I've never really thought of the standard cycle as a devastating loss. I like this idea. I would be down for this.
Yeah, it's interesting. You do make a new kind of cycle. The one thing that's I would say is the argument against is losing one expansion. It's not going to make a huge change all at once, which is the idea behind the rotation of losing 3 expansions all at once. It suddenly is supposed to invigorate and make a whole bunch of new deck archetypes suddenly viable, right? Because you go through this period of time where there's the least amount of cards in the pool possible, and that means the power level of everything is pulled down to a certain point where you have to figure out how to fill my deck with 30 cards rather than it's like, struggling to find 30 cards good enough because there's so many damn good cards. So you never kind of have that, like that would never happen again, right? You never have that period of time where the power level of everything has dropped. So that might not be as cool as you think it might be, but it also might just be the coolest thing ever. I don't know.
So which
well,
would have...
that's kind of the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
So in this example, Witchwood would have come out and Ungoro would have went away.
2 months after.
Witchwood.
Yeah, halfway through Witchwood.
Okay,
so it's
gotcha.
not like a one
So you'd have
one.
Witchwood plus Ungoro for a certain period of time, then you'd have Witchwood without Ungoro. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So I would still like to play in that.
2 month cycles of small incremental change rather than one giant, jarring
devastation of loss.
devastation. Apparently, yeah.
That
I
is-
will say this though: this is one of the
dramatic.
arguments for multiple formats, right? Which is if you think about what Magic has, this is to me is like Modern is this format that attracts me quite a bit because you are not just playing cards from the last 2 years or whatever, you're playing cards from like the last 6 years, right? So this to me could be akin to that, where it's like you have Standard, which has this big rotation, and then you have something else which is smaller incremental rotations, where there's always still kind of the Standard idea, but the sets move in smaller rotations, right? Like that's another format to me, not like replace it, but add it on.
But add it, yeah.
Yeah, we just name it Unicorn Mode.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will do anything for Europe the Unicorn.
Imagine, your Hearthstone box opens up, your menu comes up, there's a new button, it just says Unicorn. Press the Unicorn button.
That would be the only mode I would play. It would be like muscle memory. Just have to press the Unicorn.
It just, and I get like that, there is the argument too. You don't want to continue to split your player base down, especially if people are complaining that in Wild they're getting these massive.
F that argument. I'm so done with that argument. That argument is dead to
but
me.
I'm just, I don't care anymore.
I'm done. That excuse has been levied about for 5 years. I'm done with that excuse.
Yeah, and we have definitely given them ways to get around that too, and it's kind of up to them now to fix their modes. So
we just had the Magic stuff where they play all the formats. The World Championship stuff or whatever, Grand Prix. I can't remember what it was, but I just watched a whole bunch of stuff where they did drafts and then they did Standard and then they did Modern. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And yeah, that's the way around it. Make all the things viable so that people have to kind of like be decent at all of it. And then
It's my dream.
There's a reason to play it all.
It's my dream. One day. Dills, who's our next email from?
Keebler MN. I feel like Keebler has written to us before. Greetings, unpureed, unmolded, unkilled McNuggets.
I feel sick.
Pre-McNugget.
I feel really sick.
This is me in my pre-McNugget state.
Ooh, But when I become a nugget, can I be one of the dinosaur ones? Can I be dinosaur shaped?
Sure. The one
They
like
make
in the little
dinosaur
kids,
ones?
not at McDonald's, but like at the little kids' meals and stuff. Yeah, those shaped nuggets.
Yeah.
You guys in the States get all the cool stuff.
By the way, did you ever see that thing where the guy was like, let me show these little kids how they make McNuggets? And then at the end, he's like, so who would still eat a McNugget? And every little kid raised their hand. They were like, I still will.
Yeah, it's sausage for children.
It's
okay?
still super delicious.
I know how sausage is made. Am I going to stop eating it? No.
He acted like isn't this disgusting what they're doing? And at the end, they were like, no, not really.
Because they're McNuggets and they're delicious.
It's also pretty clinical.
All right, so Keebler says, I've noticed lately that when I build my own deck from scratch, usually for a quest or because I finished my 5th Schlitz Ice and want to create a Screw You Druid deck, I seem to be matched against others with equally strange decks much more frequently. Oh, interesting. For example, to complete the Frozen Throne quest, I built the Priest deck using as many Frozen Throne cards as I could. I needed 4 games to complete the quest, and none of my opponents were net decks. In fact, one ended up being a mirror match, complete with each of us having Golden Archbishop Benedictus. Good times were had. However, when I switch over to the net decks I have, because I'm a soulless, fun-hating 1%er, I could tell that matchups were now against other meta net decks. Do you think Blizzard has started checking deck lists and matching net deck to net deck and non to non? If not, do you think they should do that? I don't think that they're doing that. They've not announced that they are doing that.
They're not
That
doing
doesn't mean
that.
they're not doing that.
They're not doing that.
I don't think they're doing it. I think this is one of those moments where you have some circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
And you're probably also noticing it when it happens more often, right? Because I'm not noticing this happening. And I play plenty of weird decks trying to get quests done and things.
Well, and not to mention, he did specifically say it was during the Frozen Throne quest. So the fact that he played another person, there would be a lot of people doing the same thing. Because I know that's definitely what I did: is pick the class I wanted to play, throw in like filter for Frozen Throne, and go. So that's probably why that happened at that point, and why people might have been messing around with some off-meta decks. So.
Yeah. Now they do this in MTG Arena where if you play one of the free-to-play decks that they give you and you just click onto like casual play or whatever, or I guess it's called quick play. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like you don't do best 2 out of 3. You play one game against one other guy. It's like the quickest way to just get in and go, because those decks don't come with sideboards, right? Like they're just 60-card decks. I noticed that when I picked those decks, I played against other people playing with those free-to-play decks. Then I was able to craft like a meta red-black aggro deck, which is a top-tier deck right now. And then I went in and like suddenly the guy I was playing against was like gold rank, not bronze rank with me. So it actually did up me to other people who were playing with lots and lots of, rares and mythic rares and stuff like that. So they're doing it there. Hearthstone is at this point not doing it, but I know that Brode in the past did talk about maybe that's something that we should be doing down at lower ranks, is look at collection sizes. I
was going to say, I feel like he specifically mentioned like collection sizes and content as opposed to like actual deck list content, which I feel like is maybe slightly different and probably harder to actually implement. Like,
well, and not as effective.
Where do you draw the line of like what is a net deck, what is not a net deck? Like,
no, because what if I have a complete collection but I want to goof around? It's just going to match me up against people with complete collections who are maybe not goofing around.
Yeah.
But if I do want to play like a lower power level deck, if it did give me the thing is, it's always tricky because how are you designating power levels of these cards? Are you saying like win rates, and then we put you in some sort of bracket where your cards have an average win rate of this, and so it
would be
you know what I mean?
a lot easier later on, like in a season. But like at this, like the day expansion drops, like how do they know? Like
this is one of the reasons why more limited formats and things like that I think are the way to go, really, when you want to talk about playing a lower power level of Hearthstone, because that's just forces the power level to be lower, right? Rather than trying to take the format that doesn't have any restrictions on how much power you put into your deck and then make like fitting it into that box, right? It's like, it feels to me like square peg round hole type of stuff. Whereas you can just be like, here's a good limited format where the power levels just are lower,
Well, and so Midnight Bomber is suggesting using tier scores from something like Lightforge, or even tier scores just from like, even then Arena, we're talking a different mode.
Right.
So, but
they can't use those tier scores because they're made for.
Well, I don't think he's suggesting that like you use Arenas verbatim, but you create your own constructed. But
a constructed tier list,
What I was kind of getting at saying
have that essentially, right? They know which cards have high and low win percentages
to a certain degree, right? But then they would need to develop some type of algorithm that adjusts those factors when combined with other cards.
And I could be using really powerful cards, right? But I have a weird deck that's trying to OTK you in some weird fashion. But in like, let's say our TAC OTK deck that we just made, you might look at that and go, yeah, there's Malagos in there. That's
a high win rate card. Yeah.
Like, does just the fact that Eureka's in there make it suddenly so it's lower? You know what I mean? Like it would need to be a problem for someone smarter than I.
Yeah,
to figure out this algorithm. But
yeah,
I don't know the perfect way to actually handle that.
Yeah, it's not that simple. But something along the line would be interesting. Yeah.
This is kind of why I want the pure casual mode where you can't even get quests done in there. Like you have ranked, unranked, and casual, and then in casual, there's no reason to do it other than to go in and just play weird decks.
Play something fun,
Come up with something crazy, and then everybody in there is hopefully doing that too, because they're literally in there for the lulz, right? Like you can't even earn gold, you can't get quests done.
I don't want to rain on your parade, but the second that actually becomes successful, trolls just come out. They're like, all right, I'm bringing in my Mally Druid.
Yeah. They crush your heart and then they laugh at you. Yeah.
But they don't get anything for crushing your heart and laughing.
I know. They can do that all they want. They're just going to, And
they're not getting rewarded for doing that.
You turn emotes off, right? Like you take all possible troll ideas out of there.
You just defined a troll. They don't get anything from the trolling in the first place, but they do it anyway, just to ruin days.
Sick satisfaction.
Somewhat, it's just like, I got my sweet ass fully automatic paintball gun and I'm going down to the laser tag field. Mm-hmm. That's an extremely southern reference. I'm sorry, everybody. Jocelyn, who's our final email from?
This one comes to us from Dan, who says, here's a question for your podcast. When I look at the big websites for a list of top decks in the meta, they often have very different lists. Why are they different? And what is the best way to get the correct list of top decks? So I feel like this is like the meta snapshot type lists that present like one thing as the be all end all list for that deck versus something like HS Replay that might give you a kind of overarching deck name or deck type, whatever, but then gives you many different builds of that deck.
Yeah.
So I think like we have that tool now, which is something we didn't have before. So if you're interested in getting a whole bunch of lists that are similar to the top deck with maybe different tech cards and stuff, then HS Replay is the place to go. But as to why the big websites with lists of like meta decks have different lists, I think it just comes down to like what those specific people think is the optimized version of the list, which sometimes is going to vary.
Yeah. The thing is that Tempo Storm's meta snapshot is not based on pure data, but pros giving deck lists, and they're going to give you basically one version. Whereas, HS Replay is giving you tons of versions, and then Vicious Syndicate's going to give you versions based on their data, and they're all pulling data from slightly different sources. So,
so
the thing to do is just pick the version you like, and then tool around with it yourself, and try to come up with different ways to play that version.
Yeah, I tend to stick with HS Replay because it gives me so many options, and I have like a choice there, and I can look at statistics. But it doesn't mean I still don't go look over at the Tempo Storm meta snapshot, because I feel like Tempo Storm really takes kind of potential into the case. Like if you play this correctly, this is where this deck goes, and that's why I think right now Quest Rogue is on top over at Tempo Storm. If you sort by meta over on HS Replay, it's nowhere near the top, because the chances for misplaying in Quest Rogue are massive. It's a difficult deck to pilot correctly.
It's also Tempo Storm is like a good place. I think if you just give me a deck list, I don't want to think too hard about it, because HS Replay, to properly use that website, you're going to have to learn how to use the filters and kind of filter for what you're doing, and where you're playing, what rank are you playing at, all that kind of stuff. Tempo Storm is just going to like lay it out for you and be like, this is what we think is good. This is the list we think is good. Go. And you don't have to kind of do a lot of the thinking yourself. But if you like to do a lot of thinking yourself and a lot of analyzing, HS Replay not only gives you the variety of decks like Garrett mentioned, but it also gives you the ability to filter all of the data within the deck list, right? So to see what cards have a high win rate when they're in your mulligan, what cards have a high win rate when they're played, how often do these cards get played on this turn, that kind of stuff. So you can really kind of boil down to, is a card underperforming in my deck? Maybe I find a replacement for that card, and you can actually like pinpoint that card and be like, this card is not working. Look, when I play it, I don't win. So put something in that does win, and that kind of stuff, which requires, again, you to do a little bit of legwork.
Yeah.
There's just the short answer is like, it depends, right? Like at the end of the day. So I think personal preference comes down to a lot of it, and how much work you want to do.
They give different deck lists for good reasons, which is they're all trying to do something different from each other. Yeah. So,
yeah, exactly. And some of it's just tech choices. I mean, if you were looking at the earlier on in Boomsday, a lot of decks didn't quite have all of the tech cards for Giggling Inventor in yet, but if you looked at the gamut of that archetype, you would see a lot of them that had those cards included. And now, like if you go to HS Replay, for example, and you pull up most archetypes, anti-Giggling Inventor tech is in the most played versions now. And that's another kind of way to, I guess, explain why there's multiple deck lists for the same archetype as well, is when you start looking at tech options. But Giggling Inventor is an outstanding example in recent Hearthstone history in terms of how much it is affecting the tech choices that we make in our deck lists.
By the way, I really hope that Dan doesn't just do this kind of intro for emails to podcasts. I hope he does that when he's casually talking to people in the street. Like if he walks up and he says like, here's a hello for our conversation. Hello. Or he goes to the store. He's like, here's some money for our transaction. And then here is a sentence for our conversation.
This also did get signed with sent from my iPhone. So
okay, yeah. So just being succinct. Got it.
Yeah.
But are you suggesting that he has his phone auto start all emails with here's a question for your
for your something? Here is the answer to your question. It's just I like it. It gives me,
it's very short and to the point, and that's all I meant.
Thesis. Yeah, like I know what's about to happen now.
Yeah.
Right.
We
Exactly.
don't have an aside about McNuggets. It just
I'm now prepared.
to the point.
I like the aside about the Nuggets. It was fun. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for the emails. Keep them coming. tacpodcast@gmail.com. That brings us to the end of this week's episode of The Angry Chicken. Thank you again to our patrons for supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. If you're out there, like, if you think to yourself, hey, I get something from The Angry Chicken, I would like to give something back to them. The Patreon is the best way to do that. Whether it's $1, $2, hell, 50 cents. Go and check it out. Patreon.com/TAC. Every little bit helps. Very much appreciate it. And while I'm there, huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Sean C., and LVE, who are giving way more than 50 cents an episode. So thank you very much. The whole back catalog of this podcast can be found at amove.tv or the AMOVE TV YouTube. Go check that out. You can follow it on Twitter at TAC Podcast. And we're usually live Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/AMOVE-TV. But before we go, all three of us do other shows and content around the web. Dills, where can everybody find you?
Check me out on Twitter at Willie Dills, and twitch.tv/Willie Dills is where you can find me streaming the Hearthstones and the Magic the Gathering arena. I generally these days have been doing a bunch of Hearthstone and then at some point transitioning into a draft. So come on by and check it out if you want to watch either of those games.
Very cool. Jocelyn, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. And I'm going to talk about Gamers In again because we've been talking a lot about some really cool console stuff that's been coming out. So we talked about the new Spider-Man game. We talked about Tomb Raider that just came out. So if you guys have any interest in some console type stuff, then please do check it out. That's Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern.
You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art, and two things I'd like to mention. Obviously, everything's at AMOVE TV. All of the shows are there, but Jocelyn and I are back spoiling movies, and Halloween is basically here, so we're spoiling scary movies, or slightly scary movies, at least at the moment.
Air quotes.
You're going to watch something horrifying next month, because we have eased in to this fall over on Embrace the Spoilers. But you should go and subscribe to Embrace the Spoilers because we just spoiled the living crap out of 2015's Goosebumps. This week we'll be doing The House with a Clock in Its Walls, which I always have to think about what the hell that movie actually is. The name of it, it's ridiculous. It's a very long name.
The clock with a roof in the house of the back thing.
The House Clock Walls.
Yeah.
I think I sent you a message about it saying, house clock, too many words. I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
So go and subscribe to that, and it's because we're going to be seeing more scary movies next month. So check that out. And then my solo show, R2T2, because I've been geeking out about some Warcraft lore. So go and check that out. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!